Recording. Got Kareem, my homie Kareem Ghanie. Appreciate you joining me for another round of No More Conversations.
Awesome. Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Cool, man. So we were just chopping it up a minute ago. We ain't got to be super formal. Let's hop right into what we were talking about.
Yeah, gentrification. So I think we were talking about our experiences of like catching different perspectives of it, right? So I don't know if I told you this, but like I was born and raised in Venice. My parents have been there. They were immigrants, and I'm the first generation here in this country. So
And they were immigrants from where?
my dad is from Guyana and my mom is from Jamaica. They
Oh,
met they met in New York, but then went from New York to California. And they
okay.
first landed in Venice. And I'll tell you what, like my mom, so the house that I was born and raised in was their very first home in Venice. And my mom broke out in tears because she's like, what shithole did you bring me into? Because it was bad. It was like flea infested. It was just a bad house. But then my dad saw the vision. He was like, look, this is where we can afford. This is what it's at. And mind you, I think he was telling me, it was like, now that you're a homeowner, you could really understand this. Is like, it was at like a 19% interest rate.
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah. 19%
Oh,
interest rate. It was 100K.
okay.
Now you know what Venice
Oh,
is
yeah.
at now.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it it's interesting because like seeing the progression of where they were at when they first came into this state 30 some odd years ago, and then seeing where it's at now and the gentrification that happened in that neighborhood, it's hard not to kind of like, I want to stay here versus what I could get for it. And like that's a constant toss up. And I think that it's just like, how do you balance that? How do you balance like, I want to move somewhere else and kind of cash out, but then how do I just like still reap the benefits of the area that I'm in?
Right.
That's that constant, like that constant battle, that constant balance. And that's why now that I'm a homeowner in a certain areas, like in Leimert Park, I'm like, I've seen it from like a 30-year lens and getting that experience from my parents of seeing an area go from one to the other. And it's kind of like that pull, but then, you always kind of say like, well, should I just sell? Should I just like cash out or whatever? But then like you get that draw. I don't know if you had this similar experience or how you're feeling about it, but
Yeah, man. That was there's definitely that draw because not a whole lot of people know yet, but me and my brother decided to sell our grandfather's house in View Park, and it's really really bittersweet. And that word bittersweet has never had more meaning than right now, because I grew up in Tennessee, grew up in predominantly white neighborhoods, went to predominantly white schools. And it brought me a lot of pride to tell people that I was from View Park and tell them about View Park. Because typically when they think of a black neighborhood, it's like, it's the ghetto, it's the slums. And I was like, no, my grandparents live in a black neighborhood. And it's actually one of the most affluent black neighborhoods in America. And I took a lot of pride in being able to say that, because like, and that usually is when you're talking to anybody who's not black about that, it kind of takes them back. They're like, oh, and there's really no response to it. They're like, oh, there are affluent black neighborhoods. It's like, oh, I had no idea. And it brought me a lot of pride and just gratification for who my family was and where they were living and what they were doing. Just being able to educate people who weren't familiar with this part of South Central, really, because it's really South Central. And because of thanks to media and movies, South Central it's the ghetto, it's the hood, it's where the gangbangers live and where there's violence and drugs. But it's like, okay, that's only one aspect of it, and to one end, I can't blame people for thinking of View Park because the story is not told. There aren't enough stories told, I think, about the positive aspects of Black society. So it's not even View Park, but Leimert Park, Baldwin Hills, Ladera Heights.
View Park, yeah.
View Park. It's just like, it's like there's so much positivity in the Black culture there. So yeah, man, it's I'm definitely we had that pull, you know, and I'm still in that midst of feeling that way, you know, because it was it was in the family. As our families lived there for decades, and so like knowing that I am now an active contributor to gentrification, because you know, talking to some of the neighbors, they would make jokes. It's like, oh, the dog walkers are here, referring to, you know, the white people with dogs, because typically there weren't a whole lot of dog walkers in View Park. It's like the dog walkers are coming in, the dog walkers are coming in, and you know, just understanding the history of View Park, knowing that there was a time where Black people were not allowed to live there. They
Yeah.
were not allowed to live in that area until they changed the laws. And when they changed the laws, Black people started moving in, and all the white people started moving out. And so when you talk to some of the residents of View Park who have lived there for a while, View Park, Baldwin Hills, where my aunt and uncle stay, Ladera Heights, where my stand-in grandmother stays, you know, there's you can still feel that that anger and frustration. It's like, no, we take pride in our area here, and now the white people are coming back. They didn't want it, but now they want it because it's of value. So yeah, I am still sorting through my emotions based on this decision that me and my brother have made.
It's a tough one, because I think like there is that sense of pride, right? Like I think I had a friend that came in this last weekend. He came from San Diego. He was born and raised in Vegas, I believe, and he came into town. And I was like, hey, let me just like, hey, you got a few minutes? Like, let's just roll through this neighborhood. And I wanted to show him that there was a different side to LA. That and there's so much content being pushed out about like the neighborhood. There was like what a TV series like back in like the early 2000s around like Baldwin Hills, and it was like a reality series,
Yeah.
like whatever. There was like it was just like it was trash. It was trash, but it was still funny. But then like you have Hood Adjacent, right? Comedians talking about like living in this area, like insecure. You have content being pushed in this area that is like there is a different side to this area that you get to see, and you get a different exposure to what the wealth, not in the terms of finances, but the wealth in terms of culture and people and an abundance of knowledge of the area, just in this three neighborhoods, or like, you know, you got like, well, more neighborhoods, but you know what I mean. But seeing like almost like the pinnacle of Black culture. And I think that it's like, I feel like such sense of pride that you feel like just being in this area now. I'm catching it at like a different end, you know, because I was born and raised in Venice and now I'm here. But I think it's giving me a certain sense of gratification, certain sense of value that's just a little bit beyond like the finances. But I think that you're kind of like in the mode where it's like, hey, look, I'm making this decision to kind of, you know, sell this home and move on. And I think that at the end of the day, how I think about this is like whether you're coming in or you're coming out is the, how do I put this, like the impact to the culture that you're going to make with this. If you're going to spend this type of money to propel yourself, which therefore propels a culture, I think like it's all for naught. You know, it's just like you will hopefully leverage this to do something far greater for your family, for you, for those around you. And I think it makes like whether you're selling or whether you're buying, I think like it's going to, like this neighborhood provides some value to the culture. And I think like it's how you derive value out of it. Hopefully it's not being like, yeah, I'm going to take this and now I'm going to go blow it on, like put it on black.
Right.
That's not what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to leverage it in probably different assets or different, we could get into that as well. But I think there's just like, how do you build upon what was either given or earned or however you want to put, like, but what was provided? Something that I'm actually really conscious of, just being like the first generation here, is like, how do I use what was given to me, being like an actual just American citizen, just like, look, I'm already like at an amazing handicap in an awesome way, just being an American citizen, but then taking what my parents have provided me by being, residents in Venice, to make the most out of what was provided to me, so that I'm like now leveling up, right? Using that as a stepping stone. And I think that whatever we do moving forward, how is this being leveraged as a stepping stone to get to where we need to make an impact in our generation and the generations to come? That's at least, that's something that kind of like either A, weighs on me, or something that I'm cognizant of, like, how can I just be better to, like, I'm not going to have any kids of my own, but like for my niece and nephew, how can I provide a lifestyle that the moves that I'm making provide generational wealth or generational knowledge or generational handicaps in a good way, like I guess in a like value adds for them.
Right. Yeah, that's profound, man. And I think you said something that really hits home. But I mean, it's like not hits home because I can't really relate to it like you can, but like really acknowledging the things that we've been given. And so, for instance, like with our grandfather's house, that was something that we were given. But for you, like when you say something that you were given, it's like being an American citizen. It's like first and foremost, having the opportunity to live in this space, you know. And I think a lot of people take that for granted about like the opportunities that are afforded just being an American citizen. Like I don't know details about your parents' experience in Jamaica and Ghana, but you know they came here for a reason, to seek maybe a better life or opportunity. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Guyana, first and foremost.
Guyana, Guyana. I said Ghana.
Ghana. I was like,
Guyana.
different continent.
Definitely different. Only a few different letters away, though. There's only
oh my God, it's crazy. It's, yes, few letters away, but it's such a different experience, right? Like, so the British brought Indians from India to Guyana as slaves. That was a slave trade there. So it was actually British Guyana. Right next to it is French Guiana. So then, you know, different colonization.
Yeah.
And then obviously, you know, the Jamaicans like brought from Africa, and then so on and so forth. But like from an immigrant perspective, like my dad, Guyana is not a affluent country. It's not like it's Wakanda or anything like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a third world country, just poor as hell. So just to give you a little bit of context on that, or a little bit of history on that, is like, where my dad came from is that he was born and raised in British Guyana, which actually was a blessing and a curse, because since it was a colony of Britain, he was actually able to get out of Guyana and then actually go to England. So he is actually a British citizen. So therefore, he was able to leave his poor country and then go to England and kind of, you know, hustle. He was a grinder. He was just like, all right, I'm going to just make some moves. Granted, my dad is 78. So he, you know, that's like 42, I think, right? 1942. So like, that's back in the day.
Yeah.
Where you kind of like maneuver, you kind of work the system a little bit. He went from country to country to country, landed in America, met my mom. My mom is vastly younger than my dad. She came from Jamaica. So my dad is like, he never passed whatever the equivalent would be to like middle school. He's never passed that level of education. But I think he's developed such street smarts that he's able to kind of make some money moves, right? Make sure that he jukes and jives through the system. My mom, she actually is like, she's a very smart woman. She graduated high school at the age of 16, was one of the few Black females going to Yale.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Way back then. Okay.
Way back then. Back then.
That's huge.
So, yes. So she went in for dentistry, but went to Yale. So you have like, you see the disparity. But, you know, like my dad had a little bit of swagger, you know, had a little bit of sweet talk, had a little bit of swagger.
Put moves on.
Yeah, put the moves on. Put the moves on. The old man swagger, put the moves on. And that's how my parents met in New York. They both met in New York. And that's when they moved. So just a little bit of context around like the history and like what it took for them to leave their country countries, meet in the US, then actually make the move and then actually start to build a life. And that's the level of effort that they took just to get to where I was born into. And that's where I feel that, like, call it pressure, call it service that I need to put in, where it's like, all right, I can't, so I don't know if it's like a PG show or if it's an
Nah,
R-rated show. Like,
it's
I can't.
go
Cool.
ahead.
Yeah, I can't fuck this up. I
Yeah.
really can't fuck this up. Where it's just like, look, I have to build from your zero, or sorry, not your zero, from my zero, which is your like 100 or whatever. And like, I need to build, and I need to build to that 100% level. I need to make sure that I'm operating at a level where the next generation has a stepping stone. And that's how my brother actually, I have an older brother that's by 2 years. He lives in Dallas, and he has that same mentality. Is how do I build such a structure that his kids have a stepping stone to just take it that much further? And I think that you're in such a privileged position to be able to even entertain the thought of like, how do I leverage what I'm doing to build something greater? And I hope that that's the outset, or the view that you're looking at, is like, I'm taking this decades worth of work and decades worth of sacrifice, decades worth of hard effort, and I'm leveraging it for something greater.
That is huge. And you know, number one, just reflecting on like the type of hustler that your father had to be, you know, his willingness and his desire to do something better than where he was, you know, and just making all those moves and making it happen. And then your mom going to Jamaica, coming from Jamaica and going to Yale, that is amazing. That is amazing. But I can definitely see why this, like, maybe there's like a weight on your shoulders, like of trying to live up to the opportunity that you've been given. Like, don't fuck this up. And then, you know, making sure that that same mentality of just appreciation for what you've been given is instilled into your niece and nephew, and you know, and their kids, and that continues to really to not take things for granted, as I think a lot of Americans that have been here for generations kind of take for advantage. Like, we forget, like, there are a number of struggles in America, there are a number of things that are wrong, but at the same time, it's also taking the time out to appreciate what it is that is already on the table for us. You know, even though it hasn't always been fair for minorities, and it's still not fair for minorities, but the opportunities that we've been able to gain that weren't there before. And then to make sure I'm not running away from your question, is just like making sure, like, what position am I taking in this opportunity to continue building, you know, generational wealth, because I have a niece and nephew as well. Like, kids are not necessarily on my agenda as well. You know, I love having my niece and nephew to come over, hang out with Uncle Mike, and then I'll see you next time. You know, but yeah, man, I've been thinking about that. You know, I make you know, some investments, play in the stock market here and there, do those things that we're supposed to do to a little degree. But now it's like I have an opportunity to do something else, and I honestly am. I haven't come to any decisions yet, because I think to some degree we are constantly told us that what we have is not enough. Wherever we get, I think that's part of the American culture is it's like, you never have enough. You can always do more. You can always do more. No, yeah, you got this. You could do more. You could make it bigger. And it's like, you can. So there's a part of me that likes that hustle and like likes that opportunity, you know, and doesn't want to fuck this up, you know. But at the same time, you know, I have a buddy who's really heavy into philosophy, and when I told him I was moving to Texas and getting a place down here, he's like, I'm going to pose a question to you, and he poses it to me periodically. I think maybe we talked about this. How much is enough?
Yep.
How much is enough? And that is still something I don't have a concrete answer for, because I'm not a super material possession type of guy. I don't need, you know, to what's the word that these kids say? I don't need to, I don't need to stunt. I don't need to stunt out in the streets and be seen and make everybody think, you know, that I'm more than what I am, or this is what the, I like being pretty moderate, as far as everything. But so yeah, that's what I've been playing. What I've been playing with is like, how much is enough, and like, where do I want to go from here? What do I want to do from here? But I think something else profound that you said is like just taking stock of what we've been given, and it's not just the material things. It's like it's the cultural aspect, it's that familial aspect. I've been very, very fortunate to be born into a family that values education and values respect and values self betterment. And that those are values that I carry with me. So yeah, man, it's an interesting spot to be in. So yeah, that's and I'm still processing all of it.
It, it's there's so much subjectivity in what we kind of talked about, where it's like, how do you derive value, right? Like it could be in the form of education, monetary value, so many different facets, right? Like I think however you as a family unit, whether it's like you yourself, you and your brother, you and your brother and his wife and his kids, or however you deem the family values, right? Like that family unit. What is it that you're trying to get out of it, right? Like I'm trying to remember my train of thought here. So you touch on a few different things that I was like, okay, that's really interesting. And I think that you have a unique position where you're kind of now in this limbo where it's like, all right, I'm on the precipice of like doing one thing and transitioning into another. And I think that like keeping always in mind that well, actually, let me not say this. Like, I hope that you are looking at whatever move you make in the future. And just like I am, just like hopefully most of us are, is like, how do we do better than the previous generations? I think it'll be a loss if we're not in some way doing better, subjective term, better than the previous generation. So however you define it, or however your family unit defines it. So like when I talk about generational wealth, I'm not saying like, oh man, I got to make billions and I got to be stunned. It's more of like, I only really need X amount, right? X amount. I don't know if there's a video or if it's an audio, but like X amount at this level, at a lower level, right? I'll put it in financial, like my operating cost is X at a low rate. My income or whatever, my the assets are at Y, and it's hopefully higher. I could still operate at a certain level and be completely content. The remainder goes to the higher cause of generational wealth or passing it on, right? So like I could still live a worthwhile, meaningful life and do everything that I need to do at a certain level, because as long as I'm understanding of what makes me happy, and keep it at that level, and just like do what I need to do. And then anything remainder goes to the higher cause or for the generational wealth. So for me, travel is so important. I love traveling. I love experiences. But yes, that does require money, but it may not require multi-millions of dollars to experience that. Right. It could just be like, I'm satisfied with my life spending $5,000 a month, whatever it is. And I will have a meaningful life if I consistently have a $5,000 a month operating cost and live the life that I want to live. And then anything else, awesome, cool. Donate to charity, donate to my family, whatever. Build that family unit, build that family office, build that like multi-generational wealth. So no matter what investments I do, whatever I do, it actually goes to something that's going to be passed on while I still live a meaningful life in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that is definitely something to consider. Because yes, it's you really have to define it for yourself. Like, what is better? It's a very subjective term. What is better? And I think most people, when we say better, internally, we're always thinking monetary. Internally, and even if it's not always, it's always a factor. It's like, is it monetary? Is this person talking about monetary? It's like, he's probably talking about monetary, because most of the time people, when they say better, it means monetary. At least to some form, it's attached to that. So it's really, it's really about defining it for yourself. But yeah, I completely agree. Being able to travel and meet different people and see different experiences, I think that really helps people get a better understanding of what it means to do better. I haven't been to like India, but you hear, I've had friends that travel over there, and you see like these very poor communities, but they're happy, like genuinely happy. Um, and that's something that's really interesting, and it makes you just put it into perspective about like what happiness in America means, and even separately what happy in Southern California means. I think Southern California is a very unique bubble, and it's taught me the most. Literally, just my experience living in Southern California has taught me the most about life. Growing up in the South in Memphis, Tennessee, it's there's not too many different um, unique perspectives, shall I say. And I don't mean that in a demeaning or derogatory type of way, but it's literally about the simple life. That's a real thing. It's just a simpler way of living. And in Southern California, there are just so many complexities. It's one of the centers for innovation, just as far as creativity and engineering and technology. There, like in what we're seeing, and I think those should be considered types of miracles. The things that the type of combinations that we can make to build things that never existed before. So that pushes everybody's mentality to just constantly be on their toes and be thinking about different ways of operating. And there's just so much value. There's just so much value that can come out of the city if you know how to kind of harness that energy. Because it's easy. It's easy to get lost in the midst there. It's like the land of glitter and gold. There's you can just get distracted by all of the things going on.
Absolutely. You've touched on it, like two things that kind of was like, oh man, I didn't like, I always think about it, but then I don't realize it, right? Because I mentioned it, I was born and raised in LA, so I'm like accustomed to this. But you have Silicon Valley, you have Wall Street, you have Hollywood, you have these hubs of excellence, we'll call it, in specific industries. And there's all this energy here. People come just to soak up that energy and really try to harness it, but it could swallow you whole. It could crush you. Or you learn how to harness it and you know how to just move with it and actually harness it and leverage it for your benefit. And I think that so many people come to these towns or these hubs to be the best actor, to be the best developer, to build the best company, or to make a shit ton of money on Wall Street. And I think to your point is you could get lost in it real quick. And I think if you understand how to harness it and extract what you need to derive value out of who you are, I think that's money, and not even money, kind of that's money
that's
right there.
Money, oh yes,
that's money. That's money, because then it's how can I leverage the resources available to me to then make an impact in the areas in my life or my generations' lives that yield a different outcome. Just thinking about how privileged I am as being just someone born in America and then being born in LA, in a major hub, and then being successful in LA, and not even just me, I'm just saying being where it could go really wrong in different directions depending on how you where you're at in LA and how your life goes. But it's just it's insane to think that how much of a head start I personally had. Then that's why I think I just go back to man, I've been given a friggin' layup. I can't not miss this shot. I can't not miss this shot.
Yeah.
Double negative, but whatever.
No, I get it. No, absolutely. It fits. And I think you described it perfectly when you're talking about Wall Street, Silicon Valley, Hollywood. These are the hubs of excellence. That is a beautiful term, because it's everybody who comes to these hubs, it's like they know they have to be on their A game. And even if you're born in those hubs, you figure out that you got to be on your A game real quick.
Yes. And you hear all the time, like all these waiters and waitresses that are trying to make it and come from all these, like these transplants coming in trying to make it. And it's just like, it either makes or breaks you. I know that's so cliche to say, but it's the reality. And you actually almost see it in real time. You see it in real time, and you see where they've came from or being born here. It's always interesting to hear the stories of the individuals that were born here. Like, I'm pretty sure there's so many stories that you could tell from just being born, or not born in LA, but like having a hub in LA, and like having, like seeing generations in LA and seeing where it's came from and where it's at and the growth and like how to navigate through that
Yeah.
over the decade. Like, in of itself, there's a hustle and grind to just even stay here.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
like it's not easy, because then you could easily, just sell out, or you could easily like pivot somewhere else, or like, oh, this is too hard, and then move somewhere else. But like staying here and building something here is like a grind in of itself, even though you're not coming from somewhere.
Right.
I don't know. We kind of went on a whole crazy tangent, but yeah.
No, it's a great tangent. I freaking love it. Like it does. There's just something about the energy of the city that drives people to do better. It's like, even if you try to take a break and go to the beach, quick, fast, in a hurry, the city will remind you, like, you could be hustling harder. It's like, yo, Michael, yo, Kareem, you, what you doing? You taking a little long break there. It's been really interesting. I mean, like, me getting I went to undergrad. I finished undergrad and grad school in Troy, Alabama. So I had my master's degree, and in my mind, having a master's degree, I'm like, getting a job is going to be cake. Moved to LA, I was like, cake. I'm gonna have to apply to like 3 jobs and probably have 3 offers. And that was not the case. My first job was working part-time at the Nike store in Santa Monica with a master's degree. And and that's just become a common thing now, because there's just so much talent out there. But I had no idea. I was in a very small pond in Alabama, in the South there. And then I was like, oh no, it's like, oh, you have a master's degree. That's great, sir. We've got this part-time gig here at selling shoes. Do you want it or no? And I was like, yes, I'll take it. It's been like 4 months and I haven't gotten any bites. It was crazy. I can even recall a number of the jobs that I applied for. They were specifically looking, and they posted this in the job description, that they wanted graduates from USC and UCLA. And I was like, oh shit, they're not even looking at me. Like, I have a master's degree. They're like, no, but you didn't graduate from these couple schools. And I was like, that's how it works out here. It's like, wow. So even those are the companies that put it in their job description. I think there's still a certain mentality throughout the city of, it's like, what have you done? Like, just you have to be able, and I mean, that's normal through any job, but it's like, just to the nth level there. It's like, what have you done? Show me that you can be great. Show me that you have been great, and show me that you can be great.
100%. 100%. And I think there's like it's very industry specific. I think like tech, the thing that I love about working in tech is that you cannot have a formal education and still thrive. I'm not a developer by any means or anything like that. So I'm not in like deep tech, but I think like just getting my first introduction, I worked, I'll never forget this. It was through a buddy, put me in touch, but I started off as a EA, and then working my way through how to build skill sets. The way that the VP of sales put it at the time, it was like some small company, later got acquired, but I'll tell that story in a sec. But basically, like, it was like, hey, I'm spending my time to teach you something. You have to do something you have to give me back my time by doing stuff for me. So I was like, fuck it. All right, fine. He taught me more than I thought, because it set me up for a very successful career in tech sales specifically, where it's like, shit, I hated doing this stuff for you. I know it's so demeaning, but I can't even knock your hustle, and I would do it again over and over again, because it's just like, you have to fucking grind that shit out. And no matter whether you're coming in with a shit ton of education or you're starting off, like, this was This is when I think it was '08. We all
Mhm.
know what happened in '08.
Yep.
No jobs were, I had people like friends that were coming out, graduating, no careers, like it was a shit show. It was a shit show. And I was like, fuck this. I'm hearing all these stories about I'm not getting jobs. It's taking me a year to find a job. I'm not finding anything. And I was like, fuck, I just gotta get in. At the time I was working Geek Squad at Best Buy. I was an office manager in Pasadena, doing some bullshit and doing an internship of being an EA slash Salesforce admin,
Mhm.
just handling all this shit. And you just gotta fucking grind. You have to figure it out. You have to like hustle and move. But then once you hit that and once you like kind of prove you got the chops, then it's like you got that experience, you got that education or whatever you have. Now it's time to level up
So you had those 3 jobs at like the same time?
at the same time. And I was a student doing 18 units.
Hustle.
But
You
that's
are a hustler. Okay.
and I was just like, fuck it. It wasn't even like, oh man, I'm doing all like, it was just like, all right, I have school and I have bills to pay.
Right.
How do I do it? I, I dropped out of college twice. I dropped out of college twice because like I couldn't afford it by myself. So I had to drop out, work as much as I could, go back, do some units, couldn't afford it again because like I couldn't balance it. And then came back, finished it up, and then I started working before finishing. Before finishing, I got that job that I was talking about in the tech space.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, I was like, I don't want to not come out of this and not have a job where it's all for naught, where I'm not setting myself up. So that's why I was like, I just got to be on the grind. I don't know where we're going, where this came from, but anyways.
No, this is perfect. No, this is great, dude. My respect for you is at a 10. Now you're at like off the charts, bro. That is like, I mean, that's the epitome of what it means to like hustle. Like you are, you're going to college, you're holding down 3 jobs, you're holding, you're getting 18 units, you're making it happen. It's like, no, you're going to get it done. It doesn't matter what it takes, and there's just something, there's just something great that needs to be said about that. And so you had this guy, you had this mentor who was giving you all these odd jobs, but you say he taught you the most that you'd ever learn. Like, what would you say are maybe 1 or 2 of the most valuable things that he gave you? Valuable pieces of
opportunity. One is an opportunity to actually just like prove myself. But I think the biggest thing that I've learned from him, how to growth hack, how to take something and just make more out of it. How do I mean, one, it was just like, just giving me the shot to give me the environment to flourish. Like, hey, I'm trying to solve this problem. These are the variables that you have at your disposal. Make something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I need the results. So he kind of just like allowed the freedom and the innovation to happen where it's like, all right, I have this problem to solve. I need to solve it. And I think like really it was just the opportunity because like on paper I was dog shit. Like I didn't graduate from some Ivy League school. I didn't have some high GPA. No, I was like, I think I ended up with like a 3.0 or a 2.9 from CSUN. I wasn't some highly educated person, but I was just like, look, I have the hustle, I have the grit, and I could do it. And at the end of the day, the results is what matters. And I think what he taught me is just like, hey, just get the job done. I'll give you everything that you need, get it done. And he allowed the environment of like innovation because he was an entrepreneur. He was a serial entrepreneur and he was like younger than me. So he was like, I forgot what age he was, but he was like a few years younger and he's already built a multi-million-dollar company. So he taught me what he knew from what he learned and the mistakes that he made. And he was an immigrant himself as well. He came from Austria and came here and just like hustled, grinded, and built something. And so he just taught me just even a sliver of that to just get me where I'm going. And I'm like, I'm still using these practices today where it's like, how do I just grind, solve the problem, get where I need to get to, and then build.
Yeah, that is something that's always going to be valued from a business is being able to build and just making something more of whatever it is that you've been given. It's like, here, we've given you this, now make something more of it. And I think that that's what the epitome of innovation is. And that was kind of something that I had to learn as well. I learned it probably the hard way. I didn't have someone kind of take me under their wing and, you know, tell me like, this is how it works. For me, it was just getting told no a lot. It's like, what am I not doing right? You know, it's like, my good manners, my respectability, my quote unquote being articulate, uh, you know, that is like, that got me to a decent point in life. And, you know, allowed me to get some basic jobs, to graduate school, you know, make some decent relationships. But it's like, it only gets you to a certain point. It's like, that's great. You're a good person. Nice. There are lots of good people out there, but it's like, can you make something out of nothing, or can you make something more out of what you've been given? It's like, oh, okay. And it's like understanding that's where the value is. And I think that's where you can't get stuck, you know, because I definitely got stuck for a minute. It's like, I'm a good person. Like, why am I not progressing? You know, it's like, you're in a hub of excellence, Michael. Wake up. It's like, there are a lot of good people here. It's like, you need to be excellent. And so I really had to define for myself, like, what excellent was, and even start paying attention to people I despised, and recognizing the good characteristics that they had for why they were successful. And I was like, okay, I don't think you're a great person, but I definitely see why you are rising, you know. And it's like, okay, and just really, and I think that was an ego check. I had to put my ego down, you know, really start taking away like all of the judgment, just being judgmental. It's like, it really taught me to be objective. It's like, and because no one is perfect at everything, but if there's people that are progressing, you need to start paying attention to the specific things that are allowing them to progress. You know, there are a lot of successful assholes out there, and you have to be able to tolerate them and at least learn something from them. You know, so that was a very interesting wake up call for me. So follow up question for you, because you are a grinder, you are the hustle man, and so how do you relax?
Cycling.
Okay.
Honestly, I think I'm learning that. I'm learning how to relax. Okay. Because I think going back to, remember when I was telling you, is like, there's that inherent pressure, like, man, I'm not doing enough. My dad would have been still at work right now. Or,
right.
Like, there's that pressure of like, am I doing enough, from like the family pressure? But then, like, at the end of the day, how I relax, I think there's cycling, you know, all jokes aside, like, yeah, like cycling really does help me kind of have that mental break. Between actually my home life. So when I was commuting, I commute not as much as before, but I used to commute. It was that break between this. It was a physical break, separation between work and home. It allowed me that time to relax, to focus, to concentrate on nothing but cycling, getting home safe, and just focusing on like my body movements and stuff like that. So that was a catalyst of how I started to relax. Now I'm just trying to find different ways in, 2020, as we all are, like, how do I relax? How do I unwind? How do I decompress? But I think on top of cycling, just, this is going to sound weird, but like being patient and taking things slower, slowing down, slowing down. Slowing down. It helps me just get centered, get relaxed, and just take the physical hustle and grind. It's just like, okay, take it slow down. And it just allows my muscles to relax, my mind to relax, my body to relax, everything to relax, and creates that separation between angst at work and just anxiety or whatever, just like hustle. We're in sales, so it's like,
Oh yeah.
But then just like being okay with creating that separation. I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, absolutely. And I think there isn't enough that can be said for how much effort it takes to slow down. because moving and just running at 100 miles an hour it becomes our default. It becomes our comfort zone. We think it's comfortable. It's like, no, this is what I do. I just run. I just go, 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 go all day. And I don't take many breaks. And then what is a break? Like, why do we need a break? It's like, we just go, 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 go. But it's like, you have to be conscious and mindful about like, I'm just going to take it slow and I'm going to focus on what's in front of me right now. And I'm not going to think about my to-do list and all the things that I haven't done. It's like just really taking a moment to be present and breathing, and that is I think it's a lifelong endeavor. And I pay a lot of attention to old people, you know. I pay a lot of attention to old people because most of them are never in a rush. They are never in a rush, and it's that next level of contentment, that I think they have access to. And it's like, can I harness that at more frequently at a young age? Because I think some of it is literally just time. It's just living, being alive, and going through the ups and downs and ebbs and flow of life. But it's like just really paying attention to, again, the positive qualities that they have, and just really being able to take it slow. And again, I think a lot of that is, some of what just life brings to you. Because, as you know, I don't know if this is the same for you, but, in my early 30s here, I don't recover like I used to. I don't. It's like, oh, I used to bounce back at the next day. Now, like 3-4 days later, I'm still sore and aching. It's like, okay. So really having to slow down and thinking about what is it that's going to put me in a good state to recover. And a lot of that is just taking it slow. It's just being more mindful about what I'm engaging in, the foods that I'm eating. Yeah.
You nailed it. And I'm shaking my hand because I'm like, being mindful of where to place your energy. And that comes back to like purpose and like being mindful of just where you're applying your energy. And like, yeah, there's going to be times where you need to hustle and grind and like do that. But then there's also times where you actually need to slow down, and being conscious of that on those two dynamics or multiple different dynamics in adherence to what the purpose that you're trying to drive or where you're trying to drive value. Because sometimes it means that, yes, you're going to need to hustle and grind and super fast pace. But then sometimes there's almost more value in slowing down, being reflective, moving methodically for the end purpose. That those are two opposing things, but then they always adhere to the overarching purpose of blank, whatever that is. It's always going to be different for every single individual, but like, it's being conscious of how you're moving and the pace in which you move to adhere to that common purpose.
Yes. I completely agree. 100%. Being conscious of the pace in which you move, because life will demand you to speed up from time to time. But it's like, when you have the opportunities to take it slow and you're being really intentional about where your energy is, it's like there is going to be some carryover when life speeds up. It just doesn't go away. There's going to be some carryover. I actually met a guy down here on a hike last week, and he was a medic in the Army. He went to Afghanistan like 3 times. He was actually shot in the back. So like literally talking to someone who's saying he's a medic too. And I asked him like, what is that like? And just him basically saying that, like when there's people that are just torn apart and that you can't do anything with, you can't put them back together. Like what he's lived through and experienced, and just like to see where he's at now and be this super positive guy. But I was like, how do you train for all of this? How do you train? How does the Army teach you to just maintain your cool? Like you're out there in 100+ degrees, you're carrying, 50, 70 pounds of equipment. People are getting shot around you. There's death around you. And you're having to keep your focus, put people together, patch people up. It's like, how do they train you for that? Like, I think we get spoiled a lot of times, and we don't see the a lot of us, most of us here in America, we don't get to see the vast range of humanity. We get to see a small sliver of it, and the things that upset us uh, are even close to the things that happen in some of the darkest parts of the world, where life is ending around you. Um, it's and he said, and so I was just really curious about like what was his experience was, and obviously not trying to be not trying to intrude, but he was open to sharing. And he's like, well, what they do is they train you in Alaska. And I was like, and he was even confused when they did it. I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, we're going to Afghanistan where it's 100+ degrees. Why are we going where it's 0 degrees? And what they told him instructor says endurance is endurance. So it doesn't matter where the endurance is, on which end of the spectrum it is, super cold, super hot. It's like, and he said it was he was right. So they went over to Afghanistan, and endurance is endurance. It doesn't matter that the extreme was on the other side of the thermometer. It's like it carries over. So again, bringing that back to the point that we were talking about, like, where is your focus? It's like, whatever area that you're in, if you're being intentional about it, you're going to be more likely to be intentional about your actions when things speed up in life. For instance, like when this dude got shot in the back, it said it lifted him off of his feet and he landed on his hands. And the things that hurt most were his hands, because he's carrying his gun. And he's like, the first thing they train you to do is to, like, I guess, look around, see if it's safe, and then run for cover. It's like, so it's like that. That's just so crazy. It's like you've been shot. It's like you want some empathy. It's like, oh, help me, God. It's like, nope, you don't have time. It's like life or death. It's like you're getting close to death, but it's like, do you want to get all the way there? No, well then pay attention. And it's just like, and it's just mind blowing. And I'm just so humbled by the experience of people that are willing to sacrifice their lives, and then, but not only that, but can come back to American society and still be a good and kind and polite person after seeing so much death and destruction.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, because I think like not everybody comes out on the other side of that unscathed, right? And I think the mental fortitude that is like that people in the service have to go through, it's like that's what they're conditioning. They're conditioning you for endurance. And I mean, I know you're talking about it from a physical standpoint, but it's also mental endurance. It's so much that goes into the fortitude of your physical and mental state, just being in that situation. And I think like the applying it to people not in the service, or not in those conditions or in those physical conditions, is how do you eradicate complacency by developing the mental fortitude, or placing yourself mentally, being, excuse the parallel of like being shot in the back. How do I replicate being shot in the back to kick me in the ass to do what I need to do, or ignite something to combat complacency in everyday life? Because not everybody can kind of, well, I think at this age, I think I'm disqualified from being in the military. I have shit eyesight, and I'm not physically fit. So
Yeah, I think you got a gray hair coming in.
Hey, don't say that shit. I take pride in not having any gray hairs. But yeah, I think like it's an amazing feat to have people come from service and come out on the other side. And I think even when you take civilian lifestyle, how do you take from people that maybe came from the roughest parts of America or the roughest parts of the world, but then get complacent and don't develop the consistent shot in the back to really ignite them to that next level? Or do they plateau? And I think that's like something that kind of scares me, that I think about quite often, is like, have I become complacent? Have I settled into America? Have I reached the peak of where I'm at? And then when I get those thoughts, I'm like, I need to do better. I need to think about different ways where I can propel myself, and I do that rat race, whether that's right or wrong or whatever. But I think like hearing those stories of like hearing the stories of courage that the people of service have, or people in the service have, it's just like, fuck, I'm not doing enough. Like,
Right.
you know, you just get like, damn, like this is, my life is easy, man. I like, it's not even just doing it for my parents, but also doing for the people that don't, that I don't know, that have sacrificed so much for us to get what we have.
Right.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I know that's like a lot of pressure, but it's just like the reality is like, shit, man, your friend has sacrificed so much for us to be able to do what we do, to sit in our comfortable homes or office, to have a podcast, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, I completely
I don't
agree.
know. That was like just like a random ass tangential like segue, but
Dude, I love tangents. These are great.
yeah.
But it's so valid though, because I mean, I think for me, it's almost necessary. It's like those are things I want to know about because I have no desire to, carry a machine gun in a remote part of Africa or the Middle East. Like that's not what I want to do, but I am very appreciative of the people that do it. And not only that, but again, it's thinking about the type of conditions that they're in. And like you said, developing that mental fortitude to like try and apply that to living life here in America. It's like, what do you like, how do you do that? And it's just like those mental games that you play. So like for you, like we talk, like how do you, like you said, you ask yourself those questions. It's like, have you become complacent here in America? Like, are you getting comfortable? And so like, do you have specific areas when you say like, oh yeah, I'm getting a little too comfortable, I could be doing better? Like, are there specific things that you are currently like working on or that you do to help make yourself better?
Yeah, the simple answer is yes, but I think like, how do I split self, and I'm using air quotes for the audio listeners, like I'm splitting self into multiple different facets, right? Like
Okay.
we're a complex human being, right? So like, how do I improve my work self, my home self, my relationship self, my travel self, like all these different components of who I am, to then try to figure out which one of these components needs my attention the most, which one of these components do I really feel that I'm not expanding, and then where do I place my effort? So if I'm not, right now we're in a pandemic, but how do I place myself like in my travel self? Like how do I expand my knowledge of like understanding culture, understanding people, and understanding different facets of like society? Okay, cool. I need to satisfy the need because I haven't been exercising that muscle for the past year. All right, I need to satisfy that need. Work life. All right, cool. I switched jobs, and how do I like really understand how to build myself in work because I'm not maybe doing enough, or I need to figure out how to build this team up, or XYZ. So like I'm putting different practices in place by splitting up myself to then dissect how do I need to apply myself to improve myself. I don't know if I answered that question or
You
like,
definitely did. You
okay.
definitely did. And a follow-up question to that is like, have you identified an area in life in which you have come, air quotes for the audio listeners? That's all there is audio, but I think you're pushing me to push it
Okay.
to a video of this. um, but like, yeah, have you identified areas in life in which you have become complacent and or comfortable, and that you're okay with it? Like you're saying, like, yes, this is, I am complacent, I am comfortable, and then that's enough.
Follow-up question to your follow-up question: in perpetuity?
I haven't seen that word in a long time. Can you?
Like forever? Like complacency forever, right? So like I think I need to be kind to myself to say I've reached the happiness level in this aspect of my life at this point in time. If I were to say I am happy in this portion of my life forever, I hope, I pray that I never reach that level.
Right.
That I'm so content with one aspect of my life that I never want to change. or I'm never open to change, because then I think that's not recognizing the potential opportunity to be better or potentially look at something else, right? Or recognize even that I'm at the peak, right? Like you have to constantly evaluate certain portions of your life. So to answer your question, like I think I've reached certain areas of my life where I'm like, where I'm at, I'm okay. And I need to sit in this space and be okay for right now, because I've reached the capacity which will allow me to take units of effort from there to then apply it to the places that I need to really propel myself.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like I look at it as like it's
Mm-hmm.
like a juggling game. It's like, all
Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
cool.
No,
I got like you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So like that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, you don't have to share if you don't want to, but I mean, is
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
like a specific area in which you're like, I'm okay for right now? This is where this is good enough for right now. You can improve on it later, but what area in your life are you like, this is good enough for now?
Um, being
Perpetuity.
really no really being like vulnerable here is like I think I'm actually really content from where I'm at from a relationship standpoint, where like I think I'm content with being in love with myself right now.
Mhm.
And I don't mean that in like I know that how that sounds is like,
Nope.
look,
Sounds
I'm
good.
just like
No, gotcha.
I'm just really in love with myself right now, because that's what I need right now, and I'm content with that, because then right now I'm in a place where I'm like, I love myself, and now I can place the areas of focus to further develop other areas of my life, like my work, or even other aspects of my personal life to enrich myself. So I think I'm placing units of effort now in other areas to propel myself even further as a whole.
Yeah. No, I completely relate to that. Like really understanding the concept of loving yourself. That it's work. It's work to even understand what that means. And it takes a lot of vulnerability. Not only it takes a lot of openness, being open with yourself, having those internal dialogues about where you're at and how you're feeling and what you want and what you don't want. And then not only that, like through that path of loving yourself, it's also becoming vulnerable with others, being more vulnerable with others, telling people how you feel, just having an open conversation, like taking away the judgment, and just being open with people that you're engaging with, even if it's open with someone that you're disagreeing with, but being able to disagree with them from a state of love. It's like there's just so much there's just so much to it. And going back to your point, for me, I've been able to do that a lot more by slowing down and focusing and being more reflective and less reactive, less just shoot first, ask questions later.
Do you feel that you've um, applied that not slow downness, like that sense of like, all right, I need to kind of take a pause, relatively recent, or are you on the upswing where it's like, I've taken that pause, now I need to react? Like where are you currently at in that oscillation in between reactive and taking your time?
Uh it's ebb and flow because I think I am an emotional guy. Like I love being reactive and just doing what feels good. So it's taken a lot of a few years, and I'm still working on it. It'll never be an ending progress, but like to just contain that and control it. A lot of my zodiac friends like, oh, you're a Leo, you're fiery, you're awfully calm for a Leo. It's like, yeah, well, thanks work. There's there's a fireball in there for sure. So it's like constant reminders, like literally having this conversation and you just being the first one to say, it takes slowing down. It's like that. I take that as a cue. That's a reminder for me to slow down. Like I constantly feel myself where I get caught in life and I feel I'm ramping up and I haven't even realized that I've ramped up. But I am at a state, it's like where I can take random cues as my reminder to slow down, like literally just driving down the street and watching someone walking and looking at the trees, or, you know, just being them, is like my reminder to slow down, just really appreciating what it is to be alive. And I was talking to some other friends about this. Just really, I think, you know, we get so distracted with technology, we get so distracted with our to-do list, with our chores, with where we want to be in life. It's like, those are all good things, but it's like, are you really seeing how amazing it is just to able to have awareness that you're living in your life, and you're in this cool place, and it's like, even the struggles become more beautiful. You know, it's like, the fact that, it's like, to step outside of yourself and watch yourself getting angry. It's like, this person's just like, oh, that's, hey, you're getting angry, that's funny, yeah, that's one of those, that's human, you know, that's just, that's what you're supposed to do. So yeah, man, it's ebb and flow, it's work, and I love the process of it. And I just want to get better at being more patient, and being more focused. A biblical quote that I'm constantly applying is the "be anxious for nothing." You know, it's like I think we say that and we kind of shrug it off. Okay, be anxious for nothing, calm down, slow down, great. But it's like, can you not be anxious like in traffic? Can you not be anxious when there's someone who's frustrated with you? Can you not be anxious after you've made a mistake? Can you really just slow down? Like, and you can apply that to literally anything in life. And it's like hard. It's a chore. It takes work. And when I talk to some people, it's like, yeah, I've tried, you know, I've just not necessarily about this particular concept, but about just like loving yourself and being better. They're like, yeah, man, it's exhausting. And I'm like, yes. And that's when I feel good. At the end of the day, when I'm exhausted from loving myself, that sounds really weird. That sounds, let me rewind that. But at the end of the day, like, when you're exhausted from putting in the effort to be a better person, that's when I know that it's like, I'm on the right path. I'm doing good.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like it does take effort. And I think like there's something to say that you can, and you might feel, not everybody, but like you might feel exhausted from it, and that's okay. Reflectiveness and like taking a pause takes effort, takes like, think about when I was saying like slow down. That takes effort, just to even slow down my cadence, slow down my pace, to slow down. That takes effort. And I think like there's something to be said about that, to just be able to take that effort to just slow down, because then at the end of the day, you're soaking in so much. You're letting the uncomfortable pauses settle in. You're letting life just settle, to then be reflective about what has settled, to then react to the settled state.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree with that. I think what a lot of people do, and me myself included, I'm really good at mirroring.
Mhm.
You know, like if someone's got a really high energy, like I can be super high energy too, and it's like, okay, this is what we're doing. Yeah, well, okay, fine, fine, fine. But it's like being okay with them having that high energy, and you appreciating their high energy, but also being able to slow down in that moment. Um, do you have anybody in your life that you feel represents that slowing downness really well?
Hmm. That's a good question. Slowing down with, uh, yes, actually, yes. I would say Marie. She, she kind of like, she has like a way of looking at life like I'm just optimizing for slowing down, but in a way where it's like, she's not a hustler, but it's just like you almost have to appreciate the effort that it takes for her to slow down. Like
Hmm.
she's placed chips on the table in her life to in order to slow down and optimize for that. And I'm like, man, I fucking appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like that actually taught me how to like, yeah, maybe I'm like grinding too hard in a certain area, or like being too hard on myself in a certain area. But I think like it's yeah, I would say that that's the person that like taught me to kind of just like, it's okay to slow, it's okay to slow down, because you'll still achieve what you're looking to achieve. um I mean, I have other people that have slowed down, but then I think it's like due to old age. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to attribute that to consciousness, right? Like,
Right.
I can't say, oh yeah, you got it, you got that code cracked. You cracked the Da Vinci Code on slowness. So it's like I'm trying to think of people that have consciously slowed down because, like, look, I'm a high energy person, so I surround myself with high energy people. But then when I think about who in my life makes a conscious decision and moves methodically to slow down, I would say Marie would be the person that really harnesses that and then excels in that space.
That's awesome. And I think that's an important distinction about that conscious effort to slow down. Cause I got a whole bunch of people in my life too that just like life is like, it's time for you to slow down, bro. They're just like, I'm slowing down, this is how I live. But it's like people that are taking a conscious effort, like super aware that things are going fast and I need to slow down, or things are going slow and I still want to slow down. It's like just who is aware that effort is being put in, and like putting those pieces into place about to slowing down. And it's something that I've really been trying to pay attention to more, and find people who represent that well. I find different people that do it well in certain areas of life, and then something happens, and then it's like they're a different person. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to ignore that. Because I'm still watching you slow down in this area, which I really like, but then someone cuts you off and you are now angry, which is fine. But yeah, man, that's super cool about making a conscious effort and lining up the pieces to make sure that you will have the opportunity to slow down later.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of effort, and I think it's something that I'm looking to kind of more focus on is just really slowing down and enjoying the moment a little bit more.
Right on, man. Right on. I appreciate you joining the podcast tonight. I think that's a good note to wrap up on. And yeah, man, hang on for a minute, but I appreciate you joining now in the recording. Appreciate it, Kareem.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Yes, sir.